All right, welcome everybody to today's live webinar, Intro to Google Calendar and Google Meet. My name is Rebecca Van Dusen. I am a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library. Teaching today's class is our technology librarian, Susan Winkler. So while Susan is teaching the class, I'll be in the background helping to answer questions, taking chat messages and such. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. And to get to the chat, if you move your mouse towards the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see some controls pop up. So the chat button is there kind of in the center. It looks like a little comic book chat bubble. If you click on that, that will open up the chat and you can type questions in there. Again, as we go through the webinar today, feel free to put questions in throughout. Don't feel like you're interrupting us. That's what we're here for. You'll also notice a raise hand button. The raise hand button is helpful if you're interested in speaking your question out loud using your microphone. I know sometimes it's helpful rather than trying to type out a whole long question. If you want to raise your hand and turn on your microphone to ask it, feel free to do that. If you raise your hand, that will indicate to me that we'll go ahead and unmute your microphone for you. You also, throughout the webinar, if there's any questions, we will get to question portions. So, if we're at that point too, you can always ask questions. We will also put the handout in the chat. So while Susan is teaching, she'll be going through some slides. Those slides will be in that link that I send out in just a minute. And I should say we are recording this. So at the end of the class, we will get this ready to upload onto our YouTube channel, and that will be available for you to watch later on. I know sometimes it's a lot of information to take in all at once, and sometimes it's nicer to go back and revisit. So we'll have those up on our YouTube channel as soon as they're ready. I think that's pretty much it from me. And now I should also say that we are kind of doing both. So we do have in-person tech workshops, but we are doing once per month, we're doing the virtual workshops just so that we can capture those people that still want to be at home or that enjoy the virtual environment. So welcome. And if you haven't come to see us in person, you're always welcome there as well. All right, let me go ahead and introduce Susan. Susan, again, is our technology librarian, and she will take our class away for today. Hi, Susan. How are you?
All right. Good. Hi, Rebecca. I'm excited to be back in the virtual environment, but I'm also excited that we have in-person workshops too right now. I do know that for a lot of folks, we had gotten feedback that folks still wanted us to do some virtual workshops. So that's what we're trying to do today. And today we're going to be covering Google Calendar and Google Meet. And we will probably have a little break in between the two, but they go well together because you can create an event in Calendar and send a Meet link at the same time. So Calendar is pretty much your day-to-day, what you have going on. You can put stuff in there. And if you have an Android phone, you probably are pretty familiar with it because it's already linked to your Google account. If you have an Android phone and have signed up for a Google account when you got your Android phone. The major difference between Meet and Calendar is that Calendar is the day-to-day activities and tasks and things like that. And Google Meet is Google's version of a video conferencing service. So much like Zoom or WebEx or there's probably several others out there. It's similar to those. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we'll start with a PowerPoint here, and then we'll go to the live demo. There's just a couple of things I want to go over first, and I have some visuals to share that show that. So. Okay, so if you're here, hopefully you are here to learn about Google Calendar and Google Meet. And our agenda for today, if we were in person, I'd let everybody introduce themselves and then we'd go forward, but everyone is muted and we do not see your videos, just the videos for myself and Rebecca. But if you would like to ask questions, again, like Rebecca said, go ahead and put them in the chat, or if you want, raise your hand and we can unmute you. And you can ask them at any time throughout. We do have question slides that will come up too, but we don't want you to get left behind because you have a question that you need to have answered. So feel free to ask away. All right. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about Google Workspace. And don't worry if you don't know what that is, because we're going to cover it in just a moment. We're going to talk about Google Calendar and Google Meet, and we'll talk about what they are. Then we're going to go to a tour of Google Calendar. What are the elements of Google Calendar? What do the icons mean? And then how do we create something? And there's 3 kinds of things you can create. You can create an event, a task, or a reminder for an event or task. Then we'll talk about Google Meet, and we'll do a little tour of Google Meet. We'll talk about the elements of Google Meet. What do the icons look like? We'll talk about how to create a meeting. And then we'll talk about how to, on the other side of things, if you are attending a meeting, we'll spend a little time with what things look like when you're attending one instead of creating it. And then we'll talk about how to accept those events and meetings and what that looks like if it's coming through your email, and how to get into them. Okay, all righty. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here. And again, if you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, so Google Workspace is essentially Google's apps that it's like an office suite that they have that's geared towards productivity and collaboration. And if you've used anything in the past, like Microsoft products like Word, Excel, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, it's very similar. Docs, Sheets, and Slides are the 3 corresponding things for those productivity things with text-based, text-based documents that you create, like a resume or whatever. And of course, your email. So if you're on the if you're on the Microsoft side, Outlook would be like Gmail, that's your email service. And then Outlook also has a calendar, that's like Google Calendar. And then Meet is a little bit like Teams, in the sense that you can have a video conferencing call. Okay, so it's basically a free version of a competitor to something that you may already be familiar with in the office environment. But you also have a personal account with Google Workspace. And the personal account lets you use certain things for free. And then there's a premium version where you can pay and have access to more bells and whistles, shall we say. Okay, so Google Drive is their web-based storage and creation application offered by Google. And the reason I mention Google Drive at this point is because it also works in conjunction with the other services, where if you create a file, it automatically gets saved to Google Drive, which is basically your cloud, like your storage locker online. Okay, and then Google Calendar, of course, is the web and browser-based personal or shared calendar application. You also have the ability to put it on your phone as an app, just like with any of these other Google Workspace applications. And then Google Meet, as we said, is a web or browser-based meeting hosting application. So it's video conferencing. Okay, so the common features of all of the Google Workspace products is that they are browser-based, meaning they'll open in an internet browser, but you do not have to have internet to use them. You can use them offline, and you can use Google Chrome, or you can use a different browser like Firefox or Safari. But I do find that its functionality is better with Google Chrome. Same product, same manufacturer, works just a little bit better sometimes. Events and meetings are automatically added to your personal Google Calendar once you create them or they're accepted. And all of the programs have corresponding apps that can be downloaded to the smartphone or tablet. And like I said a minute ago, if you have an Android phone, you probably already have these apps installed on that smartphone, and you could feel free to use them, and then you can get notifications and pull up your calendar on your phone. Okay. So calendar is a part of Google Workspace. In short, it's the calendar allows someone to manage their day-to-day schedule, keep track of events, meetings, and get reminders of those meetings or other activities. I personally use it because it's great to get a reminder 15 minutes before something happens, and I keep track of my schedule. And I know, at least in this area, wherever I am, if I forget something, I could probably be there in 15 minutes. So So I have those reminders set for 15 minutes, and you can change how long before something you have a reminder for it. Google Calendar can also sync with the phone to provide those notifications, like I just said, for upcoming activities and reminders. And then Google Meet can also be used on a phone or tablet, and it's integrated with the calendar to manage meeting times and notifications. So if you share a meeting time with someone else that you want to meet with you in either Google Meet or in real life, that will be integrated within the calendar, and we'll show that live in a few minutes. But it allows someone to host a meeting via video and audio capability. Okay, and then the last couple of weeks, we've also talked about additional Google tools beyond those that are in the Google Workspace. And there are several out there, including things like Google Hangouts is actually changing. It's going to be changing into a different name, basically. But Google Translate is something you might have heard of before. Google Maps, of course, is pretty popular, and Google Street View. So if there's anything on here that you're interested in learning about, we can, of course, host classes on these too. We just need to know that you're interested in them. Okay. All right. Any questions now that we just started? Kind of got the basic overview of what we're covering today.
Yeah, I don't see anything so far.
Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into Google Calendar. So I'm going to go ahead and share a different screen. So I'm going to stop sharing that and start sharing my Google Calendar. Now, this is a Google Calendar that we have set up for the library. So it's a demo that we can use for instruction purposes, like here today. If you are signing into Google Calendar for the first time, you can, and can you see this tab that I'm adding? You can go to calendar.
Yes.
.google.com. And if you haven't logged in, it'll ask you to log in with your Google account. If you have logged in, or you're logged into, say, Gmail or Docs or any of the other Google products, and you click that link, it'll let you right in. Okay, so we are now in our Google Calendar, and we're going to just go through a quick tour of what things are and what they look like, and kind of how to navigate through the calendar. So over here on the we're just going to start in the upper left corner here. So in the very far left corner, there's a little main menu tab. And if I take this away, that takes away the view of the calendar and the date calendar things here. I'm hoping you can see that, where I'm here at May 2022.
Yeah.
On the side here. And then my calendars and other calendars. So, and the big giant create button. So if I want to see my calendar without the extra stuff on the side, I can just click on the main menu and I can take it away or bring it back. Okay, calendar here. In the other Google services, the calendar here, when you see the logo for something, it takes you back to the home screen for that product, like for docs or sheets or slides. Here in calendar, you're already on the home screen for calendar. So this actually just is giving you the logo to let you know that you're in the calendar. Okay. Where it says today, if you notice, today is also, we've got the blue circle around today's date here in the actual calendar. And then we also have this red, I call it a pin, this red pin, which tells us exactly what time it is currently. So it's 2:15, and that's what's represented here by this red pin for me on my calendar. Up here at the top, if I was to go somewhere else first, so let's say I go ahead and I'm going to hit the little arrow here and go into next week, a couple weeks away. Here we are. So now I'm into the middle of June. And if I hit today, this here will give me, it's a shortcut back to today. Okay, so that you can always get back to the current date by tapping on today. All right, and the arrows here, the little carrots for back arrow and forward arrow, they're going to let you go back in your calendar or forward, and it's going to be set by whatever you've determined over here in the calendar view, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But if I hit previous week, I can keep going back and advance back all the way I want that way, or I can go forward like this through May. Okay, and then as you saw, the date changes here where it says, you know, we can see that we're in the week of the end of May and the beginning of June. So usually up here at the top, it's just going to tell you that you're in June for the month that you're in. Okay, we'll go back. Okay, over here on the far right-hand side, the magnifying glass is to search. So the nice thing about your calendar is you can actually search for different events and things that have happened in the past. So one of the things I like to do is I keep track of my oil changes for my car, and I will put the mileage, and I will put the date that it happened, that I've scheduled it for. And then if I search, I can just search for the word car, and anything like that will come up when I search. And we'll do a demonstration of that in a few minutes. We'll actually demo all of these things. The question with the circle around it, that's support. So that's basically your help and tutorials. So if you have a question about how something works in Google Calendar, you can click on that. The settings, we're going to talk about settings a little bit more, but anytime you see that gear means that those are your settings. So that's where you can go and set and customize your experience. Okay, that's pretty true across most technology, same as the magnifying glass, meaning a chance to search. The only time that's not true for a magnifying glass is if there's a plus or minus next to it, and then it's going to mean zoom in or zoom out. Otherwise, it means search. Okay. Over here in our calendar view, right now we are viewing a full week. So we're going from Sunday through Saturday, and this week does start on Sunday. I can click here and I can pick different day, how to have it set up for viewing so that I can view either a day at a time or a week, or we could view the whole year, or the whole month, or we could view just 4 days at a time. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. Over here, the 9 dots, if you've come to any of the other Google workshops, the 9 dots represent the other applications that you can jump to from your calendar. So if we wanted to go from calendar to Meet, we can do that. If we wanted to go from calendar back to Gmail or into Maps or wherever else we want to go, we can go right from there. And then the C is our first initial, and it's going to let us manage our Google account, which is true across the board for all of the Google products. Okay. Along the right-hand side here, Google Keep is their note-taking app. The Task is an app where which can integrate with this calendar for the tasks that you create. Then your contacts list. So if you need to jump to see an email address of someone that you're going to invite to a meeting, you can jump into your contacts right from there. And then the maps here is also where you can, if you have a certain location that you have to go to or that you have to be at for something and you don't know how to get there ahead of time, you can jump into maps and get the link and then put it with the event, or you can jump to maps to then navigate to it. Okay. Down here, the plus, that's add-ons. This is true for the other Google services as well. If you click on it, you'll get a chance to add on just about anything that someone has created. But again, this is someone else. This is not Google specific for these add-ons. Most of these add-ons are coming from other companies or individuals who have coded and made them. So treat them a little bit like apps where you want to make sure you evaluate them and make sure you trust the folks before you add an add-on. Okay. Down at the very bottom here on the right-hand side, you can hide the side panel. So you can hide those extra apps out of the way if you want, or you can leave them there. Okay. Over here on the far left side, down below, as we're touring around where we are and what things mean, my calendars are going to be all the calendars that you as an individual own. So you can create your own calendars. There are a couple of defaults that Google already sets up for you. This birthdays one and the reminders, those are automatically, and tasks are all automatically set up for you, as is your sort of main calendar, which we've labeled as Champaign Library over here right now. And then volunteer shifts, this is one that I added. So I created this calendar. So you're not limited to just calendars that already exist by default. You can also create your own. Okay. And we'll talk more about how to do that in a minute too. Okay. And then other calendars down here would be where if someone else has shared a calendar with you, my spouse and I have shared our calendars. So we know where we are if we need to get a hold of each other. And then also if we have household things that need to happen, We can add invites and share them with each other so that we know where we are and if we're collaborating. And if I tell him something and then he forgets, or he tells me something and I forget, it's still in the calendar, so we know what's going on. Okay. So, and that's pretty much the basics for the beginning of our calendar tour. Are there any questions about the different things that you see? Or
I haven't seen any questions so far, but I'll let you know.
okay, great, thank you. To navigate between dates, we talked a little bit about today being a shortcut to get back to the current date, and using the carrots here, the back caret and forward caret, to go between the weeks. You can also use over here on the left-hand side this mini calendar to jump ahead by month or go backwards by month. Okay, so if I knew I had something that I wanted to schedule for, say, July, I can go ahead and navigate to July, whatever date it's going to happen. So say July 14th, and then I would go ahead and be able to add it right here. Then I could jump back to today. If I was like, oh yeah, what am I doing this afternoon? Do I have an appointment tonight? And then you could check your calendar that way. Okay, and you can also, of course, jump from day to day just by clicking on it. And you can change your view. So if you see up here in the right-hand corner where we now change from day to week, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to change it too. But if you click on the individual dates here, that will take you to that day's calendar, and you'll see the whole day and just the day. Okay, so that's navigating. Calendar view, again, you can see the day itself. And again, it does go from midnight to 11 p.m. And then, of course, you start over the next day. So one thing that I have noticed myself when I schedule stuff is making sure I select AM or PM. And if I don't see my event where it's supposed to be on the PM side, I probably forgot to change AM to PM because it does default that way. And a lot of times when you're scheduling an event and creating it for the first time, you want to make sure that you're getting your AMs and PMs correct. Okay, so over here on day, week, I'll just show you what it looks like with week, and then month. So you can see the whole month. So if you wanted to, you could print this calendar out and hang on to it, and put it somewhere if you like to have the visual representation of what's happening throughout the month for you. You can do the year, and then for the year view, you just have to hover over the top of something where there's something scheduled, and then it'll show you. So if I hit and click on the 27th, it's going to show me all the things that are happening on the 27th. Clicked on, say, the 25th, it's going to tell me nothing's scheduled for the 25th. Okay, so that's one way to look at stuff that's further ahead. I don't use the year view that much myself, just because I find it a little tedious to go through and click on each date to make sure that something's happening. But I might use it to help plan out and go, oh, is the 17th of September a Saturday? I better look ahead. That's one way I might use the year calendar myself. Okay, the schedule is going to give you like this, where you can see this is an event that I set up that would be recurring. So this is going to be a recurring event that's happening in July through April, and it's just set to repeat. So if I want to go back to today, I can come back over here to my month calendar, put that in, and see my schedule. So here's the schedule for today up here, and then for the next couple of days. Okay, now if you have a whole lot of stuff going on in one day, this will expand down so that your 24th will be all of those events. It may take up a lot more space than these other things here for the schedule view. And then you can also have a 4-day at a time show up. And then when you advance, it just gives you the next 4 days instead of a full week. Okay. Any questions about the calendar views?
I don't see anything.
Okay, good. That's, to me, that it's sort of, it's fairly intuitive to change that up there for what's going to fit best for you and how you operate and what you want to see at a time. So, and that's one good way to be able to customize something. Okay, let's talk a little bit about settings. So up here at the settings menu, I'm going to click on settings. And we're going to get a bunch of different settings, and it's for that current calendar that we're on. But if you come down here, these are your general settings, where you could also add a calendar specifically from here, or import or export a calendar to somewhere else. And if I come down here to each one of these, like birthdays, volunteer shifts, or Champaign Library, if I click on it here on the left-hand side with this left-hand sidebar, I get the option to change a whole bunch of different things about how the calendar is set up and how it works. So I could give it a description, especially if I'm going to share this with someone else. I might want to put a description in there so that they know what kind of calendar this is. So if it was, say, the schedule for the volunteer organization I belong to, then I would want to make sure, you know, it says schedule for the volunteers for such and such organization. Time zone, you can set your time zone. When you travel, this is something I have noticed, that at least when I bring it up on my phone and I have traveled to a new time zone, it updates all of those events to the new time zone, which can sometimes be a little confusing, especially if I'm, you know, because if I'm in Seattle, and so I'm on West Coast, the West Coast time zone, and then I come back to Chicago and I'm on the Central time, everything will shift back. But while I'm on the West Coast, things will be in West Coast time, and I'll be like, oh wait, is that really at this time? No, it's not. So pay attention a little bit to your time zones if you're using it on your mobile phone. Okay, so it tells me the owner of the calendar. I can export it, meaning I could try to export all of my calendar events created with Google to another service like Outlook or places like that. I can also make events public or shareable. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But that means if I did have something, say my volunteer organization was helping at a fair, and we had certain shifts that needed to be covered, I could share the calendar and tell people, hey, go ahead and sign up on the calendar for what shift you can cover. I can share it with specific people. So here I've shared it with our other account, which Rebecca will jump into in a few moments when we do our Google Meet. And you can add other people to it. Okay. Here's the event notifications. Remember I said that I set mine so that I get a notification 15 minutes before something happens, because in general, I can get somewhere in 15 minutes in this town. But you might send it for 30 or an hour or however many times you want. This is where you can customize that event notification screen. Okay. Also, sometimes you have an all-day event. An all-day event for me would be something like, if I'm going to be here at work and I'm going to be here all day, I might make it an all-day notification and just say, you know, work. Or if I'm going to be traveling and I know I'm going to drive the whole day and want to block it out in my calendar, I can make it an all-day event. Okay. I also use the all-day event for things more like reminder tasks and reminders, so that they're up at the top. So I will remember to bring something to work, or remember to do something at home, like take out the trash or something. So, but that's what tasks are for too. So you can also make those as tasks. Okay, so you have the idea here. Notifications, again, you can customize your notifications for different things. If someone responds to an event and accepts that they're going to come, or responds maybe, or whatnot. And then at the bottom, this is where you can remove a calendar. So you can remove the calendar completely and it'll be deleted. And then after a calendar is deleted, no one will have access to it. Anybody who it's been shared with, they will no longer have access. Okay. Okay. Any questions about settings?
I don't see anything.
Okay. So the next part of this that I want to cover over here, the support and help. So if you need help, if you have a question about calendar, you can click on that and you can search through their help resources here, or you can type in a specific category like share, or sharing your calendar, or creating a meeting, you know, how to do all those things. The other thing I like about this help in particular is the training. So if I click on training, I can actually learn about Google Calendar through this by the getting started with calendar, or how to import events, how to do all of these things. simply by going through their training service and reading through how to do things step by step. You don't necessarily need to do that, especially because you're taking this workshop here with us, and we're walking you through these things visually. But if you do, or you forget, or you want a chance to see exactly how Google words their training, this is where you can go for those tutorials. Okay, and that's true for the other products too. They have tutorials like that. But I do like that it's handy to get to it right from the help button there. Okay, all right. So that's support and search. Let me just show you what we can do with search here real quick. So if I click on search, and let's say I'm trying to remember when my quarterly review is happening. If I put in quarterly here, I have to spell it right. It's going to automatically pull up any upcoming event with quarterly review, or the word quarterly in it somewhere. Okay, so now I can quickly see that, oh, it's Friday from 3 to 4. Now I know. Now, if I need to do a more complicated search, like let's say I was trying to look for my example of getting my car serviced for the oil change. If I put in oil, and then it will bring up all of them. It'll bring up anything I want, basically, that with the word oil in it. But I can also limit my search using an advanced search feature, which if I click this down arrow here, I get the chance to kind of use some filters to make that list. You know, I've been keeping that list probably for, how long have I had a Google Calendar? At least five years. And I don't need to, you know, see every time I had my oil change. I just need to know when the last one was. So I would say search in my active calendar for oil. And then I don't need a specific participant because it should be on my calendar. I don't need a location. And I don't have keywords that shouldn't be contained in it, but I could pick a certain date. So I could say it was sometime last month and then to today's date. Okay. So as an example here of what I could search for, I'll go ahead and search for my name. Because somewhere in here, I'm sure I have me, and we'll put from last month, let's try the 1st of April until the 31st of May, and then hit search. Okay, so that brought up, there's exactly one meeting with Susan, and the location is taking place at the library. I can see that right there. And I can also see the time is going to be from 10:30 to 11:30 on May 26th. Okay, now I know. So in case I'd forgotten when it was, I could look it up. In case I was wondering how long ago something happened, I can look it up. Okay, any questions about search or support or that part of the calendar?
I don't see anything.
Okay, perfect. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. We're going to go ahead and create some events. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. Let's jump out of search. I'm going to go ahead and hit the back button. So this big back button up here on the left-hand side, up at the top, if you see where it says search, and then there's this arrow going to the left, that takes you back to where you were. So now I am back on my calendar, and now it's time for some audience participation. If you want to join us and put something in the chat, what event should we have coming up? Let's make something that happens the second week in June. So anywhere from the 5th of June through the 11th of June. And it can be anything you want. If it's a parade, if it's a picnic, if it's a party. I just picked 3 with P's, didn't I? Parade, picnic, or party.
All very fun things to do.
I was gonna say, I guess that's where my mind went for summertime too. But anybody wanna throw something into the chat or give me an example? Rebecca, you're included in this too if you want.
Okay, I'm gonna wait for somebody else to respond before I respond, but I'm trying to think right now.
Okay. So it could be on a Monday or on a Wednesday. Maybe it's a Friday evening. If it's a parade, it might be on a Friday evening. But you folks can tell me.
Well, I don't see anybody putting anything in the chat.
Okay.
For some reason, the first thing that popped into my head was go to the swimming pool.
Swimming pool, okay.
Because I think it's supposed to be hot coming up.
Okay, so maybe we're gonna go when it's specifically the time that adults can be at the pool, which is maybe 10 a.m. for like lap swimming. So let's go ahead and we're going to create things two different ways. There's two different ways to create an event. So the first way to create an event is to come up here to the big giant plus button and say create. And if you've taken the previous workshops, this is in most of the Google apps where there's the giant plus button means creating something new. So we're going to hit create and we get an event or a task and appointment schedule. The appointment schedule is something that you need to have that premium individual access that I talked about. That's subscription based, so there is a fee associated with doing appointments. We can do events and tasks. So let's go ahead and create an event. When I click on it, it automatically puts it at a certain time. Now, if this is not the time I want, I can edit that time, but let's add the title first and say swimming. Okay. Now I can edit the time. So if it's not at 3 to 4, I can change this by clicking on it and saying, actually, this is going to happen at, what did we say, 10 a.m.? Pick 10 a.m. and it'll be until 11. Okay. Then we get the chance to make it an all day if we want, which then puts it up here at the top. Like you see our second all day event example up here. We also have the chance to say whether or not it repeats. If we're going to do it weekly on Fridays or monthly on the second Friday of the month, or only on June 10th, but every June 10th, say it was an anniversary or something, or every weekday, or we can do a custom date range for it. I'm going to say for us, it does not repeat. First time we're going to the pool, we're going to check it out and see if we like it before we commit to doing it. Okay. If we were going to add a friend, let's say we're like, hey, you want to come do some lap swimming with me? You can add a guest, and that's going to be, you can put in their email address. And if they're in your contacts list, they should actually pop up here too. So I could invite Champaign librarian to this. And now it's going to see if it can find a time for both of us to do something and where we could meet together based on our schedules. However, we already know that this is the time we are going. We didn't set it, but we know we want to do it then. So, and you see how now it's this grayed out box over here that's just kind of a placeholder at the moment. We have to make sure that we save the meeting or the event in order for it to pop up here on the calendar. Okay, so we've got everything going on here. Down here where it says guest permissions, this is where you can let the guest, i.e. the person who's coming to your event, also invite other people. So if Champaign Library said, hey, do you care if, someone else comes to this and joins us? And you're like, no, that's fine. The more the merrier. They could also invite someone to your event then. Okay. And they could also see the guest list of how many people are coming and who they are and all that stuff. If you don't want them to have that, you can hit that. Did everybody see what I just did there? That I hit the little caret over here next to guest permissions. And then I could check mark that they could modify the event. Or we're not going to let them see others, and we're not going to let them see the guest list. Okay, and then you can hit set as default, which means from then on that's set, and then you can always go in and change it if you want. So I'll set that as the default, so they don't have permissions to alter or do anything to it. Now here's where we're integrated with Google Meet. So when we talk about Google Meet in a little bit, whenever you create an event, Google now has integrated it so that you already have a meeting link for whatever event you create. In this case, we don't need it. We're going to be in person at the pool. So we can ignore this section and we can either just X out of it or remove it or not worry about it. Okay. You could also change the settings for the Google Meet or copy that information to send to someone else. We don't need to worry about that yet because we're not doing Google Meet. This is in person. So we could add a location. Let's say this was going to be at the YMCA. You could just put YMCA, or you can pick a specific YMCA based on Google and if they know your location. So if we were going to say the Stevens Family YMCA, that's here in town, we could pick that, or we could leave it just as YMCA. Okay. Description or attachments. If we wanted to describe what this was, saying we're gonna check out the pool, or whatever, or lap swimming. And then if you wanted to add an attachment, let's say you had a list of really cool lap swimming strokes to try out, you could add an attachment with that information. Or if you had something that proves that the old adage of, you have to wait an hour after you eat before you go swimming, you could attach a research article or anything you want there. Okay, and then you hit save. Then it's going to ask if you want to send the invitation emails to your guests, and you're going to say yes, send, because I want them to know that this is something that they're invited to. And then boom, there's your event right there. Okay, and that's creating a new calendar event using Create. The second method is just going ahead and clicking right on the calendar at the time that you expect the event to happen, and then putting it in. So you can either use Create, or you can use the click right on the time. Okay, and then if you need to change the time, make it longer, whatever you need to do. Again, doesn't repeat. You can find a time. If this one's just for me, I'm just going to go ahead and say save. Okay, if you need to edit the time once you've already put it in here, you can also edit the time by grabbing and moving your block of time to make it longer or shorter, like this. Okay, so if it's going to be 12 to 2, we can do that. Or you can grab the whole thing by grabbing it in the middle here and moving the whole thing. Okay, so it's very modular, which is kind of nice. Okay, so again, this is where I run into AM, PM trouble too, because if I was clicking here, at least I know it's there. But since I put 12 o'clock here, and let's say I want to edit this, and I actually meant that it's a midnight pool party, I would click on it and come up here and say edit, which is the pencil right here. Take the pencil. We're going to go ahead and edit this. And instead of PM, we're going to say 12 a.m. And then we're going to say 2 a.m. because we don't want to be there until 2 p.m. that day. So we'll put 2 a.m. here and then save. Now I'm going to see that that actually happens up here at the top. And if I go, oh, whoops, actually, I didn't mean to do that. I could drag it and drop it back to 12 p.m. Okay, so that's the one thing to keep in mind about AM and PM and how it kind of messes things up there and switches you up in and out. Okay, so we've talked about adding details. Let me show you the more options portion. So let's go ahead and we're going to click on it and we're going to edit. And we're looking through here. We're like, okay. So this gives us the ability, again, now we can see it full screen instead of in the little pop-up box. But we could add our description. We can also select an event color that's specifically for this event if you want it to be different than the other event color. And here's your guests and your guest permissions over here on the right. And if you see up here at the top where it says more actions, if I click on more actions, I can print this particular event, I can delete it, I can duplicate it, I can send it to a different calendar as well as this one. And then if I had the access to publish the event, it's like publishing it to other people so that anyone can see it. And then I could give another person the ownership of this event, where then they would have to modify and do changes to it. Okay, let's go back. Alrighty. If I create something up here, and then when I get just a little bit of information here where I can edit stuff, but if I click where it says more options, that's where it'll take me to that full list there too, where I can then make changes to everything here. And notice too, you have notifications with that little bell here, about halfway down the page, there's a little bell icon. You can set notifications for your calendar in the settings and make it a default. But if you need to change it for a specific event, say it's an interview or something that you really want to make sure you have plenty of time to get there and be there in time, be there to like prep or anything else, you can change the specific notifications too, and you could make it, I want say 60 minutes ahead of time for this particular event, and then say save. Okay. Any questions about that? Or
I don't see anything.
Inviting others and editing the existing details?
Everything looks good so far.
Okay, I'm going to show you also how to delete the event. So if I want to delete, let's say swimming 2, I've decided I'm not getting up that early to go swimming. So I'm just going to delete it. I can click on it and have the details here. Again, and up here at the top, if you see these little bars here, I can edit the event, delete the event, email the event details, or again, more options. Anytime you see 3 vertical dots or 3 horizontal dots, it means more options, more possible things you can do. So we don't need to know anything else though. We don't need more options because our option is right here. We're just going to hit that trash can and delete the event. Now, if you have an event where you've invited someone else, like here, where we had the swimming at 10 a.m., here, if I go to delete it, it's going to tell me, do you want to send a cancellation to the other people that were invited to this? And if I say, yeah, I want them to know, I would put a little message in here, and then they get an email telling them that I'm not going to come and that I've canceled it. You know, if I was sick or something else came up, then I could send a cancellation. Okay. Any questions about that? About
I don't see
deleting?
anything.
All right, we're making good time here. Okay, so the next thing is creating tasks. Tasks, if you notice down here, the default calendar that I have here called tasks. Tasks is automatically set. The calendar for tasks is automatically set up by Google for you, as is the reminders and the birthdays. And then your job, basically, if you want to use them, you can. You don't have to. If I go back to May, you can see that I have some tasks here that I have created. Looks like I was supposed to clean my car at 11:30. Did I do it? Nope, because I was here at work. So I didn't actually do that task. But when I want to create a new task, I can come up to the plus sign, click there and say task. And it'll put it, initially it'll put it at basically like the time you're at now. So if we remember where our red pin is, that's the exact time for today. So I would put this, it goes in 15-minute increments. So it's going to put it at 3 o'clock. And let's say at 3 o'clock, I need to let the dog out. Okay, so now this is a task and it does not repeat. I don't need to do it every day at this time. And I can add a description that says, you know, puppy needs to be let out at exactly 3 p.m. And then it's going to put it on the calendar for my tasks. Okay, that's what this means here. This is the calendar it's going to put it on. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, now it's there and I can see it. And the second method works the same way for tasks. Then if you come up here to create it, if I put here and instead of making it an event, I pick task. See how it changed the color automatically? Because my tasks are orange and my events are purple. So I can make it a task and then I could say, let the dog out. And I could say, he needs a walk now. Okay, and then save. All right, so those are tasks. You can also make a task an all-day task where it would just go up above in your calendar. So rather than having a specific time you need to accomplish something, like I could put it up here and say my task is something I need to remember to do on a certain date or a certain day. So like tomorrow, let's say I need to plant hostas. So I would put that up there at the top and say plant the hostas from the garage. And then that just tells me sometime during this day, I'm going to want to plant the hostas. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay.
I don't see any.
Okay, if I need to edit something, edit a task, works the same way as you edit an event. If I click on it, it pulls a little pop-up here, and I can click on the pencil to edit. I can click on the trash can to delete it, or I can mark it completed. If I mark it completed, it takes it off the calendar here, but it's still listed in your task history. So let's mark that one completed, and you see how it just crosses it out, so it puts a strike through it. That means I'm basically saying it's completed, I did it, I don't have to worry about it.
So
Okay,
that's
so
kind of nice if you have like maybe a to-do list or something.
Exactly. And especially for me, what I do is I usually put it up at the top as the all day is the to-do list. Like mow the lawn and anything else I have to do at home, I put it up here. Or if I have to remember to bring something to work, like the day we do our taking pictures class and I bring stuffed animals from home, I would put up there, bring stuffed animals, and then I can cross it off when I've done it. So
That's a good idea. Then that way you kind of have your to-do list and your calendar built all in one. You don't have to go between two different things.
Exactly. And what also helps with that too is I can set the reminders for the, hey, don't forget to take this to work the night before, so that I can even pack it up and put it where I want it to be in the house. And then it pops up on my phone because I have my Google account linked with my phone. So the calendar notification pops up and says, hey, remember tomorrow you're gonna bring the stuffed animals. And then I will go to the room and grab them and bring them and put them where I need them to be, to then remember to take them and put them in the car and take them to work. So it helps my brain keep track, which is the whole idea of the calendar, is to be able to keep yourself organized and do what you need to do and what you need to accomplish, and blocking out certain amounts of time for certain things and stuff like that. So, okay, so I showed you how to mark it as complete. Let's go ahead and say, well, I didn't get this done. I could either move it to another day, or I can just delete it. We'll delete the task. So I just hit the trash can to delete it. Okay. Now I mentioned that if I wanted to, I can create a reminder for something that's coming up. So to create a reminder, we can go into the create, and then we can say, let's see, I think it's under reminders. So down here, the reminders calendar. I click on reminders, it should show me all my reminders, and they're going to show up as blue. And then I can change that too, and I'll talk about changing calendar colors here in just a minute. But let's go ahead and say I want to see the reminders calendar, and I'm going to create. Oh, why don't I have reminders? That's weird. And it should be here. Maybe I don't have that enabled on the calendar in here. I did though. Let's go check our settings here real quick and make sure that I've got the settings for my calendar. Okay, so down here, notifications, there should be a section for multi notifications, people, calendar. Let's see, remove calendar. So I'm just trying to see if I can find other notifications. Change events, cancel events. Okay, I'm gonna have to look this up here. But in general, it should be the exact same way that you would do your calendar event. So you would just click on create, and you'll see when the box comes up. Oh, you know what? Here, I know what I did wrong. Yeah, okay. So you have to start with doing here instead of going through the create plus. The reminders you create at a specific time to remind you of something. So if I created it here and I pick reminder instead of event or task, and this is, let's see, bring stuffed animals to work. Okay, and then it's happening at 8:30 in the morning. What happens is I get a notification that says bring stuffed animals to work, and it shows up on my phone at exactly that time of day. At exactly 8:30, my phone will go off with a notification with this reminder. Okay. So yeah, so that one you don't do up here with create. It's just clicking on your calendar. And if you've done it, you can mark as done. It'll cross it out and put it up above that the reminder is done. Okay. Any questions about all of that? It's a lot of stuff to cover, I know.
I don't see anything.
Okay. The next thing that I want to cover about calendar is how you can change the colors of the different things that you see. So down here in the left-hand sidebar where I can see my calendars, I can see that Champaign Library right now is purple. If I click on the three little dots here though, I can change that color from this grape color to maybe I want it to be kind of an orange, a yellowy orange color like that. So I can change it. So tasks, same idea. You can make it so it's cobalt blue, change it. So whatever works for you when you're customizing things so that you can tell immediately what something is. That's one way to do it. If calendars have been shared with me, I also changed the shared calendars to a different color. So that way, if I'm seeing my calendar and someone else's next to each other, then I know. So example, let's do holidays and make sure that it picks up Memorial Day. Yes. So if you see holidays in the United States, this is another calendar that I've added, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. And then I've got it as green. So Memorial Day here shows up as green. If I'm on the same date with something of mine, it's just going to show up that color. Okay. So that way, if you have two different calendars and you know, and you overlap with, say, a spouse or another family member, you can keep track of which calendar belongs to which person. Okay. Okay. So only one last thing that I want to show with calendars, and that is how to share your calendar with others. Speaking like my example I just gave of family members. So if you want to share your calendar with another family member, or if you're like me, I shared my calendar with my roommate so that we wouldn't worry about each other. We shared both our calendars with each other, so we would know, you know, and in general where someone was before we had to worry about why they, you know, if they didn't come home at a certain time or whatnot. So it's a good, I mean, it's up to you, of course, what you want to, and you can keep more than one calendar and share one that has your work schedule and not your personal life if you want. Totally up to you. But you can very easily share your calendar by clicking on the three little dots here and going to settings and sharing. And then if you give it a description, and you can export it to something like Outlook or wherever else you want, but you can also either do a shareable link to someone else, or you can share with a specific person. And if you share with a specific person, you can click this plus sign and then say add people. So if I wanted to share it with me, I could put my name in there, my email address, and I'm going to give them permissions. And these are the permissions you can give them, where they can only see that I'm free or busy. This is Champaign demo. They could see the event details, they could make changes to the events, or they can make changes and manage the sharing of the calendar. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I only want them to see when I'm busy or free, and then hit send. Okay, and now they're going to be added here with the certain permissions. If I decide later I want to share more, I can just go ahead and click on this little arrow here and share more permissions with them. If I want to take them away and no longer share the calendar with them at all, I can click the X here and it will unshare the calendar with them. Okay. And that's pretty much all you got to do with that. If you want to subscribe to a calendar that someone else has created, like for example, our holidays in the United States calendar, we added that from someone else, which was very helpful. You can go to other calendars and click the plus sign here and then say subscribe to a calendar, or you can create a new calendar or browse calendars of interest or share from the URL that they gave you to add that calendar, or you can import from something like Outlook. So I want to say, let's go ahead and browse calendars of interest and pick something from in here. Let's see, let's say I want to, I'm kind of sad they don't have soccer, or let's see, let's go with cricket. They have cricket, but not soccer. I don't know. But anyway, so here are some that some other folks have created, where then you could pick the calendar and you could pull that calendar for that specific team or that sport or whatever and put it on your calendar. So for example, Phases of the Moon, sure, why not? So the calendar is created, it's fetching it, it's going to put it down here. Now it's going to be in this pink color. So, and I can't change anything here because it was of the permission someone else gave me. But if I want to remove it, I can remove it by unsubscribing. Okay, now let's see what that looks like on our calendar. And I'm hoping if I check mark this box, we're gonna see, okay, so we have a new moon at 6:30 on the 30th. Okay. And that's how to add them from somewhere else. All right. Creating a new calendar, again, same idea. Hit the plus, then say create new calendar, give it a name. For example, your time zone, and then create calendar. All you gotta do. Then you get to come over once the test calendar has been made, then you get to come over here and click on it and change your settings and set your notification settings, your reminders, who else is gonna have access to it, okay? Now, if I go back, you're gonna see now new test calendar, and it automatically gave it green as the color, but it's in my calendars because I created it. Okay. Questions?
I don't see any.
Okay, let's say I want to delete a calendar. My main calendar here, the Champaign Library one, that one I'm not able to delete, but I can delete any of these other ones I created, like new test calendar or volunteer shifts. So let's go ahead and click on that, and we're going to go ahead and go into settings and sharing. And we're going to come down to the bottom here, and we're going to hit delete. And then it's going to pop up a notice just letting you know you're permanently deleting a calendar. I'm permanently deleting it. I'm okay with that. And I went ahead and deleted it. Okay. So it only gives you that one warning before you delete the calendar. So make sure you really don't want anybody else to see it, and you don't need it anymore yourself. Okay. All right. Feeling pretty good about everything so far? Any questions about calendar before we take a little break?
I haven't seen anything. I have really good experiences with Google Calendar. I feel like everything they do is pretty much makes sense, and I don't have to hunt too much.
Yeah. And the nice thing about calendar, I mean, especially with this is, yeah, it is fairly intuitive. And again, I'm a regular user of it. I don't know where I'd be without my electronic calendar through Google. Because again, if I forget something, if it's in my Google Calendar, I'm bound to remember that it's happening, as long as I put it in there. Especially tracking things like my schedule. If something changes and I fill in a shift for someone, I can easily adjust it there. And then the others that I've shared my calendar with, they immediately see that I've changed something, and that something's been, or they can go in and look and say, oh yeah, right, I forgot she's doing this, or this is happening today. So okay. All right, well, it's 3:04 right now. I say let's go ahead and we'll take a quick break. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into a demonstration of Google Meet and how Google Meet works. So there are a couple of different possibilities for Google Meet. And again, as someone with a free account, you have generally the time frame is about an hour. Again, with the premium account, you can get more time if you want, and you can do some other stuff with the premium options. But we're going to go ahead and start here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you what the Google Meet screen looks like. So hoping you all see this now. Okay.
Yes.
So this is the Google Meet screen, how it appears when you first go to meet.google.com. Or if you go from those 9 little dots for your apps, and then you get to here. Okay. Now you'll notice here with Google Meet, up at the top, we have the date and the time up here at the right-hand side. And then again, we have the support and help. You can also send feedback to Google, and then you have some settings for your Google Meet. And then again, the 9 little dots to jump back to a different app and your account information. Okay, so the place we really want to start, though, there's not a whole lot to this for the launch page, but if you see where it says new meeting and or enter a code or link. So if you're joining a meeting, hopefully the person has either given you a code or a link to put in here, and then the join will turn blue and you can join the meeting that they started. What we're going to do first, though, is we're going to pretend that we are the host of the meeting. So we're going to select new meeting, and then we're going to start an instant meeting today. But I also want you to see you can create a meeting for later, which means it basically will just generate a link with a meeting code that you can you can then send to people, or you can schedule something in Google Calendar. So if I pick schedule in Google Calendar, it takes me to my calendar and then lets me put in the title of whatever the meeting is. So again, if we were doing the quarterly review, then we pick, and you see right here it says 3:30 p.m.
It's
Well,
not
that's-
it's not showing
Oh,
any sort
sorry.
of pop-up on there.
Okay, sorry. Thank you
If
for
there is a
sharing- thank you
pop-up,
for
I'm
saying
not
that.
seeing it.
Yes, there is a pop-up. Let me try to share that screen instead. Give me 1 second here. And I will jump into stop share that, share screen. Okay. Google Tab. And we're going to do calendar, excuse me, calendar event details. Okay, so now you should see quarterly review, Susan.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So it automatically picks the time that's closest in those 15-minute increments, but you can adjust this. So I could pick a different date. So let's say the quarterly review was happening on June 2nd, and I could pick, 4 o'clock. Okay, so it's from 4 to 5 on June 2nd. Then I could hit save. And then what's going to happen is if you see where it says join with Google Meet, and here is that link with the code. So the code is everything past the slash. And when you put the code into that spot at the beginning where it says, enter code here, you don't have to put in the hyphens. You can just put all of the letters in there. Okay, but anyway, so this is how we could do it, where it then is integrated into our calendar. So it'll show up on June 2nd at 4 o'clock that the quarterly review is happening. And then we can go right into that on the calendar and jump into the meeting on Google Meet. Okay, we're not going to do that today, though. We're going to start an instant meeting for us. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of this one, and I'll share the other tab here in just a second. So we're going to go ahead and leave that. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump back into here and share the other screen. So give me just a second here. Just going to share the other Chrome tab. Okay, so we're back to where we were, and we're going to hit new meeting, and we're going to start an instant meeting. Okay, so I'm going to hit start an instant meeting. And now I am in my instant meeting. So y'all can see instant meeting, and then you're now seeing what it looks like in Google Meet. Okay, so off on the left-hand side, you can see that now if I want to add others to my Google Meet, I certainly can. And I'm going to send an invite to the Champaign librarian. So if you saw how I did that, I'll do it again real quick. Add others, and then pick from your contacts or whoever pops up. Since I've already met with these people, it's going to automatically pull up those folks as suggestions. But you could also just enter a name in here as long as you know the email address. So if I wanted to go to another Google account, I could certainly put that in there. If it wasn't a Google account, I could send it to someone else and they can join in as well. But it's better if you have a Google account to use. So I could enter myself, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Champaign librarian here. And we're going to send an email letting them know that I'm inviting them to join a video call happening now, right at this moment. So I'm going to send that email. The invite is sent. And hopefully Champaign librarian will join me in just a minute or a couple minutes. So anyway, I don't need this anymore, though if I wanted to invite someone else, I could copy the link to the meeting and send that to someone else too, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and X out of that. And now we're here and we're sharing our meeting. Now here's Champaign librarian. Hi. Also joining our meeting.
Hello.
Sometimes you'll see up at the top, it'll say admit when the other person wants to gain entry into your meeting. It didn't do that for us this time, but normally it will do that, especially if it's the first time you're connecting with someone else. So, but now that we're both in here, we can go ahead and get started with our little tutorial of the Google Meet screen and space. Okay, so if you needed to share the link or the code for your meeting with anyone else, if you notice down here in the bottom left-hand corner, hope you can see, I don't know if you can see my arrow. Yep, looks like you can. Down here where it says 3:19 p.m. and then this RHX, this is the meeting code. So this is what you would send to people if you wanted them to join your meeting, okay? Now, you'll notice here for me right now, my microphone is off in the Google Meet. That's because if I had both Zoom and Meet on at the same time, we get a really intense feedback from the microphone and the headset. So mine is off right now. But if you notice, there's a little eye that says, hey, you have your microphone off. Do you want more info on how to set it up or how to get it to work? So I could click on this and it'll tell me, opening my privacy settings. I don't have access to it, and it'll kind of walk you through how to fix that. I do have my video on, but if I was to turn off my camera, you then would just see a profile photo if you have one, or my initial. Okay. In the middle here, the turn on captions, that's the CC in the box. So if I turn on captions for us, captions have been turned on. They should be in English, hopefully. And then over here, I've got some settings where I can make choices about the different settings. Now, since I'm not using my microphone through the laptop, it is not generating captions for me. But if Rebecca says something,
hello,
hopefully it'll generate captions for you. I don't think it did though.
Maybe. No, I don't see anything.
I don't see it. So, but that is where captions are supposed to be. And it does make your screen a little bit smaller. If you notice, the screen get a little bit smaller because the captions should be going on down.
Wait, I think it's because
here.
I have my Zoom microphone on too.
Okay, so yeah, so if we were using the mic through Google Meet, it would get the captions for us. Then if I want to share my screen, I can present now, which is sharing my screen, which is the little up arrow and the little rectangle. And then I have more options of things I can do. They let you use a whiteboard if you want. I can change the layout. We're going to do that in a minute. Visual effects. I encourage you to play around with some of these if you try out Google Meet to see what you can do with things. Okay. And then you could report a problem, and then you could also get into your settings for Google Meet. Okay. If I want to leave the meeting or end the meeting for everyone, because I'm the host, I can leave the call, and then Rebecca would become the host of the meeting. And then she could continue to talk to the other people that happen to be in our meeting. Okay. Over here on the right-hand side at the bottom, the meeting details. This again also gives you the direct link for letting someone else to come in and join. And you can copy the joining info, and you can email it to someone else or text message or whatever you want to do to give it to someone else so that they can jump in. Okay. The attachments that you may have added in Google Calendar. Remember what we talked about with the swimming example, where if we added some different strokes to that, they would appear here if we had linked the two things together. Okay, that's meeting details. Here, it's going to show everyone, meaning it's going to show who's in the meeting. And here it's showing whether or not you've got your microphone on. Then I could pin myself so that it would just be me on the main screen. I also have the capability to remove Rebecca from the call if she was doing something she shouldn't do, or I just like I'm done talking with her. I'd be like, I'm kicking you out. Or I can pin her to the screen so that she would be up at the top. Okay. I could also search for people to add to the call, or I can search for people within the call. Okay, so up here I can add people, and I can search for people that are in the call just to make sure. I'm like, oh, I need to find out if you had a big meeting with 40 people and you needed to make sure someone was in there who was going to present or something. You could search for their email and make sure that they were in the call there. Okay, the chat lets you chat with everyone. So everyone right now, it's set to let everyone send messages. They can only be seen by the people in the call, and it deletes after the call ends. So that means that there's no transcript that will go out after the meeting comes to you. No transcript will come to you of what was said in the chat. Other meeting services offer that. The premium version offers that, but not the free version. Okay, so you could screenshot it if you wanted. Otherwise, you're not going to have that messaging. Okay, so I can say hello, and then all I have to do is hit the send button to send that message. And then whoever else is in the meeting can see it, and they can write back if they want. And they can share links or whatever else. So, okay. All right. Down here, activities. You have the capability, like I said, of doing a whiteboard. So if we click on this, then it's basically a whiteboard, just like a physical whiteboard would be, where I could draw on it, I could add text, I could sketch ideas and do whatever we need to do. There's a robot game you can play while you wait for someone else or other people to enter. The premium things, breakout rooms where you can funnel people into different areas, and then polls and recording the meeting. So in the non-premium version, you cannot actually record your meeting or presentation. Just keep that in mind. Okay, and then the last tier is the host controls. I'm the host right now, so I can let people share their screen, let people chat, let them turn on their microphone or turn on their videos. That's all stuff that I can control. If I didn't want anybody to turn on their videos, I could turn that off. Okay, okay, and those are the basics for Google Meet. The other things you might run into, if you need to allow access to your microphone and your video, Google Chrome will usually pop up in the top corner of the address bar and ask you to allow access to those things. There's a screenshot in the handout of what it looks like, so you can look through that handout as well. Other things I want to mention, the more options here lets you change the layout of your screen. So if I want to change the layout, I can do a couple of things. I can change it to sidebar, which means that then I'm small over here and Rebecca is over here. And that will be whoever's talking or whoever's spotlighted will be up there. I can also change it to spotlight, just like I said. So spotlight will make her spotlighted in the middle like that. And I can also change the layout to auto, which is going to set us back into that range. And then tiled, same idea. Down here at the bottom where you see this bar, this screen, this allows you to make the tiles larger or smaller depending on who's in, how many people are in the meeting. So you could, if we had 6 people, we could make them smaller. And it maximizes the titles depending on the window size. So it automatically does it, but you can also change it if you need to. Okay. Auto again does the same thing, and you can, if you like one of these, you can set them for every meeting where it'll automatically start with that layout for you. Okay. Okay. That was the other thing I wanted to cover there. If you are, let's see. Oh yes. So if I wanted to pin myself to the main screen, I could click pin, and then that makes my screen a little bit brighter, or not brighter, a little bit bigger. And if I don't want to be pinned, I can unpin myself by clicking on that little pin again. If I want to remove the tile, click that. It removes it as a tile and just pops me down here in the bottom like this. If I don't like that, I can click it again and it'll put us back together. I can also minimize. And minimizing, this is tricky. When you minimize, now Rebecca's screen is full screen, but I'm still down here in the corner and I'm still sending my video to others in the meeting. So that means I'm still here saying hi, but on my view of it, I'm only seeing this little control panel here. Okay, if I didn't want my video on, I would have to turn it off here on this little control panel. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and bring myself back. So that's what minimizing does. It just pops you down there. And your videos. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's sort of helpful because, you know, when you're on a call like this, it's like your video is always showing. So it's sort of distracting to like see yourself all the time.
Yes.
So if you minimize yourself, you're more focused on the person or the people you're talking to.
Yeah. And you can also do that without your camera on too. So if I was to turn off my video first and then minimize, you know, then I wouldn't have to worry about the webcam showing anything up here too.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So does anyone have any questions about Google Meet and how Meet works? Or at least how this version of Google Meet works? Again, with all of the Google products, the stuff, it's free, which is awesome. But if you want premium features, you do have a subscription option. And a lot of businesses and educational institutions do use Google for a lot of what they do, and so they have some other options of things that they can leverage from the paid version too.
I don't see any questions.
Okay. So I'm just double checking to make sure that I covered everything I wanted to. So we got our full screen, the microphone and video controls. If you do turn off your video, it's going to usually be your, I might have mentioned this, your profile picture. So for example, with Rebecca, she's got the library image there. For me, since I don't have a profile picture for our demo account, it's just going to be my initial. Come back here. Okay. We talked about captions, and the captions will show up if your audio is actually coming through the device that you're on. It's a little different for us because we're here. Oh, I can also share my screen. So if I say present now and share my screen, let me go ahead and pull up our website here and show you how that looks when I share my screen. So if I come to here and I say present now, and I'm going to present my entire screen. So this is going to get really meta for a second when I present the entire screen. And this is what it looks like when I present the entire screen. So it's like a fun mirror image of everything, because now I'm not only sharing through Zoom, I'm also sharing through Meet. So you get this like reverb look to it. But if I was presenting just in Meet, you wouldn't see this. You would just see my screen. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing that and then show you what it's like to share a window. So if I'm going to share a window, there's a little pop-up that pops up that says share an application window. And if I wanted to do that, I would share the application, which could still be here, which again is going to look a little meta. Okay, stop sharing that. And then if I want to share a tab, I can click on share and share a tab. And then it gives me the option, there's a pop-up box, and these are in the handout for what the pop-up box looks like. But then I have a chance to pick from my different tabs. So I'm going to pick the tab to share that has the library homepage. And then what you'll see is I'm now sharing the library homepage, but you can also see that since my camera is still on, and so is Rebecca's, you can also still see both of us if you're viewing. Okay. And then to stop sharing, there's just a little box up here that says stop sharing. So I'm going to say stop sharing, and it's going to tell me that I'm sharing to a specific thing, and I will hit stop sharing. And then now I'm back in my meeting. Okay, so that's sharing. There's also screenshots of what it looks like when you're an attendee, so you can kind of see what that looks like as well. And then when we're ready to leave the meeting, there's also stuff that'll show up for leaving. I'm just double checking to make sure I get everything with the layouts that I wanted to show. And yeah, so there's an attendee view where you can make it full screen so that you don't see other people's videos on the sides, and that you can pin the presenter's video, and again, you can minimize all that kind of stuff. So I do want to show, I want to jump back into the PowerPoint real quick to show a couple of examples of what the emails look like that you get for joining stuff. So if there aren't any questions about Google Meet, we'll switch back to the other view and the other camera. But I do want to cover anything in Google Meet if you want before we jump out.
Let me check here.
Okay.
I don't see anything.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll jump back out. And I'm going to show a couple of things from the PowerPoint, and then we'll be all set and done for today. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the call. And when I leave the call, there's going to be a little screen that's going to pop up, and it's going to say, you've left the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the meeting, and I will rejoin you in Zoom momentarily. Okay. All right. So I've left the meeting, and I'm going to off my webcam here. Oops. Okay. And then, okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and stop my video over here and stop my audio. Okay. There we go. Then I'm going to jump back over here as I narrate everything and share my screen, and back to the PowerPoint here. And we're going to go from the current slide. Let's see, let's go to current slide. Okay, so here's everything we just, basically what we just covered, all the things for Google Calendar. And I'm going to zip through these kind of fast. So if you want to look away for a second so you don't get motion sickness or anything, feel free. Because I'm going to jump us back to the Google Meet. Oh, and I'll turn back on my camera here in just a second. Okay, so there's creating tasks. So anyway, we basically, the handout is going to walk you through everything exactly like you need to see it, and like we did today. Okay, and creating a new calendar, hiding, and okay. And so here's our stuff on Google Meet. So starting an instant meeting, which is exactly what we just did, and then we were adding others to that meeting, creating a meeting for later and how it would look. And then here's that part where it says enter a code or link. So this is down here at the bottom left of the slide. There is where you would put in the code for the meeting. And then again, here's our tour. So we walk you step by step through everything. Browser and mic access, captions. Here's an example of what captions actually look like when you're able to go through and use it. Okay. And that's really, I think that's really a nice thing to have, to be able to do that. And here's what the pop-up windows look like when you're sharing either an application window or your full screen or your tabs. Okay, options. And then here's what it looks like when you leave the meeting. So once you've left a meeting, you will see a screen that looks like this, and you can either rejoin because maybe you accidentally clicked on that end meeting button or leave meeting button, the red hang up button, and you can rejoin it instead, or you can return to the home screen. It's up to you. Okay. The right side toolbar, which we talked about, attendee details, activities. So here's an example of what the whiteboard looks like when it pops up when you're using the activity. And then the different host controls we talked about, admitting or denying people. So this is what that pop-up looks like when someone's coming in. It looks like, and then you can say deny entry or admit. We admitted Rebecca. We did not deny her entry, but you may find that you need to do that at some point in time. Okay. Are you still seeing my screen, Rebecca?
Yeah, I'm seeing your PowerPoint.
Perfect. Okay, good. Okay, and here's where we talked about the layout options. And this is Percival. He's one of our mascots here at the library for our department. Here is what the attendee view will look like if you do full screen. And then here is when you pin a video. And then here's me, playing with Percival, and I were conducting some important business here at the library. So here is what I wanted to show. This is the email invite that you would get for a calendar if someone shares their calendar with you. So you would just click on add this, and of course, make sure it's someone that you know and that you're expecting that it's going to happen. And then you can click add this calendar, and then it's going to put it down under the other calendars in Google Calendar. And then for a calendar invite, when you get the email message from someone, you can select either yes, maybe, or no, or click more options. If you've said yes, then it's going to add it to your own Google Calendar, and it'll show up on your own Google Calendar as well. Okay. An invite for a Google Meet, you're going to open the email message at the correct time for the meeting, and then click join call, and then you'll confirm your settings because it'll ask you if you want to brighten your video, and then ask to join, and you just click ask to join, and then it'll jump you right in there. You can also, like we said, join with a meeting code. So if you copy the meeting code from whatever it's sent with, it's sent in an email or wherever else, and then you just enter the meeting code down here. You do not need to enter the hyphens, and then click join. Okay, so at the end here, I have the Google Calendar and Google Meet premium features that I have gathered so far. So the extended time for Google Meet video calls, recording options, the appointment scheduling, and customizable layouts, and live setup help. And it's, I think, $7.99 per month for the Google Workspace individual plan. Again, we're not saying you should or shouldn't do that, but just know that that is an option that's out there. Okay, and then I'm gonna stop sharing for just a moment and turn on my video, and we can check and see if anybody has any questions, or if there's anything else that anybody has questions about with Google Calendar or Google Meet.
I don't see anything.
Okay, I am going to share real quick what are some of the upcoming things that we have going on here at the library. Our additional resources, mostly the Google support pages for Calendar and Meet. And again, you can look at their training and support guides. We can do Book a Librarians here at the library. It's half hour to an hour of staff time with an individual staff member devoted solely to you and your questions about whatever the topic is that you want to spend time exploring. We also have live chat whenever the library is open, and the email address here for general information or anything is librarian@champaign.org. You can also email me or Rebecca directly, and I'll have a slide here in a second that has my contact information as well. The YouTube webinars are available, again, champaign.org/YouTube. And then you can click on Tech Workshops for the playlist if you want. This one will also go up there probably next week, I'm guessing. And you can look at all the other tech workshops that we've done over the past 2-ish years with the most updated version of those from when we've run them. And we do have our upcoming, you can learn about upcoming events programs by joining our email, our monthly message, where we send information about what's upcoming. And then speaking of what's upcoming, here is what's happening in June. We will be talking about Kindles, iPhones and iPads, Android phones, and a new workshop called Intro to Chromebooks, which will be our virtual workshop for the month of June at the end of the month. So if you're curious about Chromebooks, you've heard of them, but you don't know what they are, or you're just interested in learning more about them or how to use them, that's a good workshop to take. If you're new to the world of iPhones and iPads, or at least to the latest update, come to that class, come to the Android class if you want to learn about Android phones. And again, we're here to help. So anytime you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if we don't know the answer, we'll find someone who does. Okay, and then here's my information. And I think that's everything. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't see any further questions.
Okay, if you find that you have questions post-workshop, sometimes that happens with me where I ruminate on things a little bit later and then I discover I have a question. Reach out, let us know. Again, we're happy to help. And oh, let me stop sharing that. Okay, and so yeah, you can always reach out, let us know what you need. Oh, I think I should, here, let me pin my video. Okay, so reach out, let us know. We're happy to help. And I hope you enjoyed today's discussion of Google Calendar and Google Meet.
Yes, thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope everybody has a good day. And of course, reach out if you have more questions. All right. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.